Dad Quiet Revenge.
On Thanksgiving morning, my phone buzzed with a message that changed everything. My daughter Allison had just texted me, "Dad, forget about us helping when you're old. Hire home care. We have our own family priorities now." I sat there staring at those words and something clicked in my head. I picked up my phone, called my lawyer, and removed her from my $950,000 inheritance. That same evening, she showed up at my door. What happened next, nobody saw coming. Let me back up. My name is Roderick Manning. I'm 61 years old, and I live in Dearborn, Michigan. For 38 years, I worked my way up from line worker to plant manager at Great Lakes Automotive Parts. Started on the floor at 22, worked double shifts, took night classes for my engineering degree, and eventually ran the whole operation. When I retired last year at 60, I had a decent pension, a solid $401k, and my house was paid off. All told, about $950,000 in assets. Not rich, but comfortable after nearly 4 decades of honest work. I thought my daughter would be proud of what I'd built. I was wrong about a lot of things. Allison wasn't always the person she became. I remember her at 8 years old, sitting in my workshop while I fixed things around the house, asking me how everything worked. She'd hand me tools and listen carefully when I explained why you use a Phillips head instead of flathead, or how to read a blueprint. That curiosity, that respect for honest work, it all disappeared somewhere along the way. The change really started 4 years ago when she married Jasper Brooks. Jasper showed up in a BMW he couldn't afford, wearing suits that cost more than most people's monthly salary, calling himself a financial advisor. Truth was, he sold insurance and wasn't very good at it, but he had this way of talking about investments and wealth building that made Allison think she'd married someone important. The first request came 6 months after their wedding. Allison called me on a Sunday afternoon, voice all sweet and concerned. "Dad, Jasper found us this amazing house in Rochester Hills, but we're just $35,000 short on the down payment. Could you help us out? We'll pay you back as soon as Jasper's big commission comes through." I transferred the money that Monday. Jasper's commission never materialized. That was just the beginning. Over the next 3 years, it became a pattern. $22,000 for a reliable car when their lease ran out. $48,000 so Jasper could buy into a friend's insurance agency that folded within 8 months. $35,000 for home renovations that would increase the property value. $28,000 for what Jasper called emergency business capital when his latest venture hit a rough patch. Every time the same promise: "We'll pay you back next month when things turn around." They never paid back a single dollar. I kept track of it all, old habits from managing production schedules and budgets. By last spring, I'd given them $285,000. That's more than I made in my first 12 years at the plant, more than most families save in a lifetime. And every time they asked, I said yes, because that's what fathers do, right? You help your kids get ahead. The phone calls got less frequent as time went on. Sunday dinners became monthly obligations, then holiday-only appearances. When they did visit, Allison would spend most of the time on her phone while Jasper made it obvious he'd rather be anywhere else. Once I overheard him in my bathroom talking to someone. "Yeah, I'm at the old man's place, just waiting it out until we can leave. He's got plenty of money though, sitting on all that retirement cash." The old man, that's what I'd become to my son-in-law. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I had my annual physical. Dr. Spencer Walsh, who'd been my doctor for 15 years, noticed my hands shaking slightly during the exam. "Nothing serious," he said, "just normal aging and maybe some stress." But it got me thinking about getting older, about what happens when you need help, about who shows up when things get tough. That night, I sent Allison a text. "Honey, can we talk soon about the future? I'm having some minor health concerns and want to discuss what support might look like as I get older. Love you." I watched the typing dots appear and disappear for several minutes. Finally, her response came. "Dad, be realistic. I have my own family now, my own responsibilities. Jasper says we can't take on the burden of caring for elderly parents. Forget about us helping when you're old. Hire home care. We have our own family priorities now." I read that message 3 times. Each word hit like a slap. 38 years of 60-hour weeks, saving every penny so she could go to Michigan State without student loans. Paying for her wedding, $28,000 for one day where Jasper's family looked down on my blue-collar background. And this was my return on investment. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I went to my filing cabinet and pulled out the folder where I kept all the financial records. Bank transfers, copies of checks, text messages where Allison promised to pay me back, emails from Jasper explaining his temporary cash flow issues. I added it all up again, $285,000 over 4 years. Not loans, gifts, because none of it ever came back. I sat in my kitchen that night looking out at my backyard where I'd taught Allison to ride her bike, where we'd had barbecues with the neighbors, where I'd imagined someday teaching my grandchildren about tools and fixing things. That little girl who used to help me in the workshop was gone, replaced by someone who saw me as nothing more than a bank account. The next morning, I called Jasper Reynolds, an estate planning attorney I'd met through my union's retirement seminars. We'd talked briefly about wills and trusts, basic stuff. Now I needed something more comprehensive. Jasper, I need to change my will. How fast can we do this? What's the situation, Roderick? I read him Allison's text message. There was a long pause. I can have new documents ready by Monday. But I have to tell you, this kind of change often causes family problems. The family problems already started when she sent that message. We met at his office in downtown Detroit that Monday. I brought my folder of financial records and a printout of Allison's text. Jasper reviewed everything carefully, asked detailed questions about my mental state, my decision-making process, my long-term plans. Roderick, your current will leaves everything to Allison except $25,000 to the UAW Scholarship Fund. Are you sure you want to change this? I want to flip it. $35,000 to Allison, everything else to a new foundation, something for working families, kids whose parents break their backs in factories like I did. 3 days later, I signed the new will. The Manning Family Foundation would provide college scholarships for children of manufacturing workers in Michigan. Kids who understood the value of honest work, who wouldn't throw their parents away when they got inconvenient. But I wasn't done. Changing a will is one thing. Protecting it from challenge is another. If Allison found out what I'd done, she'd claim I was mentally incompetent, that someone had manipulated me. I needed proof that my mind was sharp as ever. I scheduled comprehensive medical testing with Dr. Walsh. Cognitive function, memory tests, neurological evaluation. 3 different doctors examined me over 2 weeks. The results were clear. Mentally sharp, no signs of dementia or impairment, perfectly capable of making my own decisions. I also hired Candace Sullivan, a private investigator recommended by my lawyer, former Detroit police detective, now specializing in financial investigations. I needed to know exactly how Allison and Jasper were spending the money I'd given them. This kind of investigation runs about $1,800, Candace told me when we met at her office in Birmingham. Could take 4 to 6 weeks for a complete picture. Money's not an issue, I just need to know the truth. What she found was worse than I'd imagined. In the 8 months since their last loan request, Allison and Jasper had spent $52,000. Not on necessities, not on investments, not on anything that could be called responsible. European vacation, $12,000. Designer furniture, $18,000. Jasper's new Audi lease, $680 a month. Country club membership they used twice, $6,000 initiation fee. Jewelry, clothes, restaurants where dinner for 2 cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Meanwhile, Jasper's insurance career was completely finished. According to Candace's research, he'd been fired from his second agency in March for falsifying client information and pocketing premium payments. His current financial advisory business was just him working out of their spare bedroom, managing maybe 2 clients, both relatives who probably didn't know his track record. They were living entirely on my money while telling me they couldn't afford to help with my future care. 2 weeks before Christmas, Allison called. First time in months she'd actually called instead of texting. Dad, Jasper and I want to invite you for Christmas dinner. I know we haven't been around much, but it's family time. Right, she was wearing a new diamond bracelet when I arrived. I didn't recognize the brand, but it looked expensive. Jasper greeted me with his usual fake enthusiasm, talking about some incredible investment opportunity he'd discovered. Over dinner, he pitched his latest scheme. Some real estate development in Florida, guaranteed returns of 300% in 18 months. All I had to do was invest $65,000 to secure my position in the deal. I listened politely, asked a few questions, told him to send me the details. That night, I forwarded everything to Donovan Pierce, a financial planner I'd worked with on my retirement investments. His response came 2 days later. Roderick, this is a classic Ponzi scheme. The Florida development doesn't exist. Several people have already lost money on this exact scam. Don't invest a penny and consider reporting it to the authorities. Jasper, the man my daughter had married, the father of the grandchildren I might never have, had tried to steal my retirement savings through fraud. That's when the last piece of my old self died. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger is hot and emotional. What I felt was cold and calculated. They'd shown me exactly what I meant to them, and now it was time to show them what they meant to me. Christmas came and went. Allison and Jasper went to Florida for New Year's, posting photos on Facebook of their $350 a night hotel room. I spent the holiday working with Jasper on the final details of the foundation structure. In January, I had lunch with my old friend Lance Garrett from the plant. He'd retired 2 years before me and we'd stayed in touch. Lance had a different problem. His son kept asking to borrow money for his landscaping business, but Lance could see the kid was working hard, investing in equipment, building something real. That's the difference, Lance told me over coffee at our usual diner. My boy's trying to build something. Your Allison's just trying to spend something. He was right, and that's when I knew exactly what I was going to do. In February, Candace's investigation revealed something else. Jasper owed $32,000 to his former business partner from a deal gone bad. There was a judgment against him, and if they couldn't pay, creditors would start going after assets like the house I'd helped them buy. My money had been supporting not just their lifestyle, but covering Jasper's business failures. And soon, if I kept enabling them, I'd be paying off his debts too. The final confrontation came in March at my 61st birthday party. I decided to have a small gathering at my house. Allison and Jasper, a few neighbors, some guys from the plant. Nothing fancy, just cake and conversation. Jasper showed up an hour late, still in his golf clothes. Allison spent the first hour on her phone, barely acknowledging the other guests. When my neighbor Stephanie asked Allison about her work, she rolled her eyes and said, "Oh, I do some marketing consulting, nothing you'd understand." Stephanie had run her own accounting business for 20 years. After everyone had cake, Jasper cornered me in my kitchen. "Roderick, I wanted to talk to you privately about your financial planning. You're getting older, and frankly, your investment strategy is pretty outdated. I could help you modernize your portfolio, make sure you're maximizing returns." He was trying to get control of my money, all of it. "I'll think about it," I told him. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my living room looking at the birthday cards on my mantle. Stephanie had written thanks for being such a good neighbor and friend. My former supervisor from the plant had signed his card, proud to have worked with a man of integrity. Allison's card was store-bought, generic message, signed just Allison and Jasper. The next morning, I called Jasper. "It's time. Let's make this foundation official." The paperwork took 2 weeks. The Manning Family Foundation was now a legal entity with scholarship criteria, selection committees, and proper oversight. 85% of my assets would fund it after my death. Allison would get $35,000 minus enough that she couldn't claim complete disinheritance, not enough to be worth fighting over. But I wanted her to know. I wanted her to understand what her text message had cost her. I invited them over for dinner on a Saturday in early April, made pot roast, Allison's childhood favorite. Though I doubted she remembered over dessert, I brought out a folder. "I wanted to share something with both of you," I said. "I've been thinking about what Allison said at Thanksgiving, about having your own priorities, about me hiring care when I get older." Allison looked uncomfortable. Jasper leaned back in his chair, probably thinking this was leading to another investment pitch, so I decided to take your advice. "I've made arrangements for my future care, and I've also made some changes to my estate planning." I opened the folder and pulled out the first document. "This is a summary of what I've given you over the past 4 years, $285,000 total. House down payment, cars, Jasper's business investment, home improvements, and various emergency loans that were never repaid." Allison's face went white. Jasper sat up straighter. "Now this is documentation of how that money was actually spent." I spread out Candace's report. European vacation, luxury goods, country club memberships, and covering Jasper's business debts and legal judgments. "Dad, I can explain." Allison started. "And this," I continued, pulling out another document, "is evidence of the investment fraud Jasper tried to involve me in. The Florida real estate scheme that doesn't exist." Jasper's hands were shaking now. "That was a legitimate opportunity." And finally, I said, placing the last document on the table, "This is my new will. The Manning Family Foundation will receive 85% of my assets. You'll inherit $35,000, Allison. I thought you should know." The silence in my dining room was absolute. Allison stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. Jasper's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. "You can't do this," Jasper finally whispered. "We're family. We have rights. You have exactly what the law gives you," I replied. "And according to my attorney, that's not much when the parent you've been exploiting decides he's had enough." Allison found her voice. "Dad, please." I didn't mean that text message the way it sounded. I was just stressed, and Jasper was pressuring me. "Jasper was pressuring you to tell your father to hire strangers instead of expecting help from his family. How exactly does that work?" She started crying. Real tears this time, not the manipulative kind I'd seen before, but I'd made my decision. "I'm sorry it came to this," I told them both, "but you showed me exactly where I rank in your priorities. This foundation will help kids whose parents work hard and sacrifice for them. Kids who won't throw their families away when it becomes inconvenient." They left without finishing dinner. Jasper slammed my front door so hard it rattled the windows. 3 days later, Allison called. She'd hired a lawyer, Thompson and Associates, to challenge the will change. They were claiming I was mentally incompetent, that I'd been unduly influenced by someone. Jasper had prepared for this. We provided the court with my medical evaluations from 3 different doctors, all confirming my mental competency. We showed the careful documentation of Allison and Jasper's financial exploitation. We presented evidence of Jasper's attempted fraud. The hearing lasted exactly 45 minutes. The judge reviewed everything and made his decision. Mr. Manning clearly possesses full mental capacity. This petition appears to be a transparent attempt to challenge legitimate estate planning decisions based on financial self-interest rather than genuine concern for Mr. Manning's welfare. Petition denied. Outside the courthouse, Allison and Jasper's lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear. Jasper shook my hand. That was decisive. They won't try this approach again. The consequences kept coming. The Michigan Department of Insurance opened an investigation into Jasper's business practices after I reported the fraud attempt and his history of client premium theft. The IRS discovered he'd never properly reported the money I'd given them as gift income. Their tax liability came to about $58,000 plus penalties and interest. By summer, they'd lost the house, had to sell it to cover Jasper's debts and the IRS settlement. Allison took a full-time job at an advertising agency in Troy, her first real job in years. She moved into a modest apartment in Warren and started seeing a therapist. Jasper disappeared for a while. Word through mutual acquaintances was that he'd moved back in with his parents in Ohio, trying to rebuild his insurance license in a different state. In August, I got a letter from Allison. Not a text, not an email, but an actual handwritten letter delivered to my mailbox. Dad, it began. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to tell you something. I've been in therapy for 3 months now, working on understanding how I became the person who could send you that message. My therapist says I developed some really unhealthy patterns around money and family expectations. I learned to see you as a resource instead of a person, and I'm ashamed of that. She continued, I'm not asking you to change the will or the foundation. I understand why you did what you did. I just wanted you to know that I'm working on becoming someone better, someone you might eventually be proud of again. I'm sorry for everything, and I love you. It was the most honest thing she'd written to me in years. I called her 2 days after getting that letter. We met for coffee at a diner in Southfield, neutral territory, nothing fancy. She looked different, tired, but somehow more real than she'd been in years. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a sweater that looked like something a working person would actually wear. I've been thinking about what you said, she told me after we'd ordered, about showing you where you ranked in my priorities. You were right. I treated you like an ATM instead of my father. And now I'm trying to figure out how to be a better person. My therapist says I developed some unhealthy patterns around money and family. Jasper reinforced them, but they were there before I met him. I learned to see love as something you could purchase, or something that came with financial strings attached. She stirred her coffee nervously. I'm working full-time now, 40 hours a week at the advertising agency. It's hard work, real work, and I'm learning what it means to earn something instead of just asking for it. What about Jasper? Jasper and I are getting divorced. The papers were filed last month. He's been trying to contact me, wanting to reconcile, promising he's changed. But I can see now what you saw all along. He was using both of us. We talked for over an hour, not about money, not about the will, just about life. She told me about her job, about learning to budget on her salary, about the small apartment she'd found that she could actually afford. For the first time in years, she seemed like someone I could have an actual conversation with. When we got up to leave, she hugged me. Dad, I'm not asking to go back to how things were. I know that's impossible, but maybe eventually we could have some kind of relationship, something honest. Maybe in time, I told her, but it would have to be genuine. No expectations, no hidden agendas. I understand. That was 6 months ago. We've had coffee 3 more times since then. Short meetings, careful conversations, but real ones. She's still in therapy, still working at the agency, still living within her means. Jasper moved back to Ohio permanently after the divorce was finalized. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that he's selling cars now. Probably the first honest work he's done in years. The Manning Family Foundation awarded its first scholarships last month. 10 kids, children of factory workers, mechanics, construction crews, and service workers. We held the ceremony at the UAW Hall in Dearborn, same place where I'd attended union meetings for nearly 4 decades. I sat in the front row watching these kids receive their awards, seeing the same hunger in their eyes that I'd had at 22, starting on the factory floor with big dreams and calloused hands. Maria Santos, whose father works at Ford's Rouge plant, wants to study engineering. Kevin Johnson, son of a carpenter, plans to major in business management. Sarah Mitchell, daughter of a hospital custodian, dreams of becoming a nurse. Their parents sat in the audience, proud and hopeful, some still in their work clothes because they'd come straight from their shifts. These were my people. Folks who understood that nothing comes easy, that you earn what you get, that family loyalty isn't conditional on convenience. After the ceremony, Maria's father approached me. "Mr. Manning, I can't thank you enough. Maria's the first person in our family to go to college. This scholarship makes it possible." "Don't thank me," I told him. "Just make sure she knows the value of what she's getting. Education is earned, not given." He nodded, understanding completely. Driving home that evening, I passed the plant where I'd spent 38 years of my life. It's still running, still employing good people who show up every day and do honest work. I'd been part of something meaningful there, part of building things that mattered, part of a community that looked out for each other. That's what I'd tried to give Allison. Not just money, but values, a sense of purpose, an understanding that relationships are built on mutual respect and support. She'd lost sight of that for a while, seduced by Jasper's promises of easy money and entitled living, but maybe she's finding her way back. The woman I had coffee with last week seemed more like the little girl who used to hand me tools in the workshop, curious and genuine, than the person who'd sent that text message telling me to hire strangers for my old age care. Allison's Thanksgiving text message cost her $915,000 minus the difference between what she would have inherited and what she'll actually get. But maybe it saved her from something worse. Maybe it forced her to confront who she'd become and decide who she wanted to be. As for me, that message gave me something more valuable than money. The knowledge that I stood up for myself when it mattered most, that I turned betrayal into something meaningful, that I chose dignity over being used. Some lessons are expensive, but living without self-respect costs more than money. I'd rather fund dreams for kids who understand what it means to work hard than continue enabling adults who'd already made their choice about what I was worth to them. The foundation will outlive me. Every year, 10 more scholarships will go to deserving kids from working families. They'll learn trades, start businesses, become teachers and nurses and engineers. They'll remember that someone believed in them when it mattered, and hopefully they'll carry that forward to their own children. That text message changed everything, and I'm grateful for it. It showed me exactly who I was dealing with, and it freed me to become who I needed to be. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most end up teaching us the most important lessons about ourselves. That's worth more than any inheritance. The greatest inheritance you can leave isn't money. It's the example of standing up for your own worth when the people closest to you have forgotten it. Sometimes protecting your legacy means protecting it from your own family. And that's not cruelty, it's the final act of self-respect.